I review a lot of games, some great, some terrible, and some so-so. That's why it's always a delight when I can spend my review just gushing over a great new release, and I'm happy to say that Death's Door is one of those games. Developed by Acid Nerve, the team that brought you Titan Souls, Death's Door captures everything that's great with top-down dungeon crawlers with a beautiful presentation and lore to back it up. But before we jump into this review, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon to stay up to date on my reviews. Only 10% of you watching are subscribed, so make sure you get subscribed. Our story begins on our way to work. We play as a young fledge who happens to work for the Reaping Services. You clock in, collect some souls, eat lunch, and do some paperwork. It's not much, but it's honest work. Sadly, your typical Monday quickly derails when you go after a giant monster soul. Upon defeating the beast, you're knocked out and the soul is stolen. As a trade-off to the soul you just lost, you go on a journey to claim the souls of 3 other large creatures that have avoided having their souls reaped this whole time. The simple story is presented straightforward with some sprinkled in humor and moments of somberness in the process. All in all, the 8-hour story struck a chord with me, finding a great balance between making me laugh while also feeling invested in this world that is equally Souls-like as much as it is dorky. If you played any top-down Legend of Zelda game or other top-down dungeon crawlers in the past, you'll no doubt find Death's Door to be recognizable. It's very much comfort food for fans of the genre that checks off just about every pseudo-genre staple. A cute little protagonist that has to fight bigger enemies? Check. Multiple types of weapons and power-ups? Check. Those weapons double as puzzle-solving mechanics on top of the combat? Check. It pretty much has it all, but more importantly, it does it well. Upon starting, we're thrown into the sandbox area where we get a feel for what we're in for. We can walk around, swing our swords, shoot arrows, and charge with a heavier attack. Little potting stations around you let you plant a healing seed so you can recover your health. As you begin to explore, you'll come across all sorts of monsters, some that fly, some that shoot projectiles, and even some that teleport. There's a nice variety of enemies that increasingly evolve into more challenging obstacles the further you progress. At the end of each of the 3 main dungeons, not including the introductory one when you first start the game, you'll come across bosses to fight that are the cherry on top of this figurative sundae. These Goliaths, in comparison to you, put your skills to the test as you let out your entire current arsenal just to survive. In true Zelda fashion, defeating this boss only further unlocks a variety of new skills and magic that'll be essential in solving the next dungeon's puzzle and boss. It's a great formula that kept the 8 to 10 hour campaign feeling fresh throughout the entire journey. As you begin to unlock abilities, the world reacts accordingly, presenting enemies and puzzles that can only be defeated or solved with such abilities. You get your usual puzzle elements like activate switches, blow up cracked walls, and light lanterns with flaming arrows. These puzzle elements continue to evolve over time, providing a great balance to the excellent boss encounters. My one consistent gripe while playing, however, has to be the placement of the checkpoints in conjunction with the boss fight. When dying to a boss, I would often find myself respawning somewhere in the middle of the dungeon that I had to once again get through just to reach the boss again. While it's nice to be given the option to go back and maybe collect something along the way, I would have loved to just be able to retry the boss immediately. At least being respawned back to the dungeon did incentivize me to explore more, and that often led to me finding hidden areas where I could find ways to increase my stats or find hidden away items. Speaking of which, while you can't upgrade your weapons, you can swap between them and still use the souls you've collected to increase your own stats like speed and strength. Finding these hidden away treasures was always a treat, but I was a little surprised by how easy they were to come across despite supposedly being hidden. Death's Door has a beautiful art style that mixes realistic lighting and cartoon-like animation to create this almost claymation-like aesthetic. It reminds me a lot of the recent Link's Awakening remake on Nintendo Switch, only more dark and at times just as vibrant. Its enthralling presentation easily enamored me. I think it shined the most in the boss fights that presented ever so slightly more detail in the character models that looked fantastic in juxtaposition to our more simplified design protagonist. Now, this game is available on PC and just about every Xbox from the Xbox One up to the Series S and X. I played my review copy on Series S and X and was happily surprised by the performance. Xbox Series X sees a native 4K 60 frames per second without any dips in sight. That's dropped down on the Xbox Series S running at 1440p 60 frames per second, upscaled to match an artificial 4K. While I personally didn't play on Xbox One, I did hear from some friends playing on the Xbox One X that performance seems solid, at least when it came to the frame rate. Whether you're playing on high or lower resolution, the overall performance seems more than stable across the board, and its art design complements across those multiple resolutions. When it came to sound design, Death's Door didn't miss a beat. It offered a solid balance of epic sounding boss battle music that reinvigorated my confidence in the next fight every time the dreaded death screen appeared across my TV. The other half was somber and peaceful, and it really paved the way for the exploration when first entering a new dungeon. There's no dialogue, and I prefer it in this case as I think the voiceless lines help give more credence to the more humorous side of the writing. All in all, the sound and the music choices here don't necessarily steal the show away, but they do more than a good job at complementing the writing and the visual side of the presentation. Death's Door easily makes the list for my instant recommendation list of dungeon crawling games. Outside of a few hiccups and nitpicks with the gameplay, its interesting world, funny approach to dark plot, and well thought out dungeon designs kept me enthralled the whole time I played. Its combat moments were challenging, and when it came to boss fights, they were both impressionable and memorable. If you have a PC or an Xbox from this generation or the last, you owe it to yourself to pick this up and give it a shot. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thank you very much for watching my review. If you found it informative or entertaining, then please consider subscribing. I make reviews for all the latest AAA and indie games. Here's another challenge for you. If you could only recommend one dungeon crawler to someone that's never played one, what would it be? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd go with The Link to the Past DX on the Game Boy Color. It's such a classic and easily one of my favorites. Anyway, until the next video, I'll talk to you in the comments down below or over on my free Discord server. The invite is in the description.